Welcome to A Little Faith, and I'm Levi. Before we get into this interview between Matt and Dr. Jose Bevia, I wanted to take a minute for a small plug for the WCF Music Network. Matt and Jose's interview is all about how music can connect an individual on a very deep spiritual level, and if you're someone that agrees with this sentiment, we really want your help. If you are a musician, singer, or just a big fan of music and worship, please go to our website, wcfoundation.org/music-network. That was wcfoundation.org/music-network, and fill out the contact form. Our surveys have shown that there's a lot of space to grow for our community in the music area, and we really need your help to do that. Thank you again for listening to this episode, and I hope you enjoy this very interesting and encouraging interview.
Welcome back, everybody, to A Little Faith. My name is Matt. I am your host. This is a podcast that is put on by the Williamsburg Christadelphian Foundation. And today I have the wonderful privilege to be sitting here with Jose Bevia, a dear friend and somebody who I draw much inspiration from his work and his compositions. And I'm going to have Jose introduce himself and tell us a few things about him for those of you who have never had the privilege.
Thank you. My name is Jose Bevia, and I am married to the most wonderful person in the world, Miss Maggie. And I am a pianist and composer and lover of life, lover of food,
Yes.
lover of the world, and lover of friends, and many other things.
So you compose music. Tell us about where you're from. You're from Spain.
I was born in Spain, in a small city in the south of Spain called Alicante. It's a beautiful city. I think the best thing of Alicante is the light. It's something that really amazes me every time I go back, especially in the winter. The color of the sky in Alicante, the blues that you get there are something that I haven't seen anywhere else in the world. And we can talk about the colors of the sky later if you want to. But yeah, Alicante's blue sky in the winter is beautiful. So I was born there, and
A seaside town, right?
yeah, it's by the Mediterranean. So my mom still and my two brothers, they live there, and my mom owns a house literally 5 minutes from the Mediterranean. So when she opens her windows, she sees the Mediterranean. It's absolutely beautiful.
So you grew up.
I grew up there. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
We live in different locations, but that was that apartment was where I spent most of my teenage years, and then I moved to the U.S. It will be 20 years in January. I landed in Boston in 2000 actually, so it'll be 2020,
Yeah.
20 years. Landed.
And why did you come to the States?
I was always fascinated by the American culture. One of my memories in childhood when I was growing up, I think I told this story. I was in a department store in Spain, and probably this was 1982, and we had these little TVs, and Thriller by Michael Jackson was being played. And I was a kid. I remember like looking at that. I was like, what is going on? And then we have Fame, that TV. They were training all these kids to be like actors, and we were all fascinated, like, wow, how they do these things in the U.S., you know. And then I think one of the biggest game changers for me was when I was 14 years old, I heard this jazz pianist named Kenny Kirkland, who was on tour with Sting from so many years. And he was playing a solo on called Bring on the Night by Sting. And if you hear that solo, you can't believe that is possible on the piano, on a pop song, okay?
Yeah.
He played so much piano there, so I was always like, what is going on here? And then jazz, and I wanted to study jazz. So I get a full scholarship to go to Berkeley's famous school in Boston. So when I got a letter I remember I opened. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going.
It's
you know.
happening. It's happening.
And then my mom, she's always concerned about everything. You know, she's always worried about everything. And
Yeah.
like, well, what are you gonna do in the U.S.? I'm like, well, I don't know. We'll figure it out. You know. And here we are now.
Yeah.
So,
You
so I came as a student basically.
But you came for kind of to pursue your love of jazz.
Jazz,
and
actually.
the piano was your medium of tapping into jazz. And
But then there was also like composition. You know, I always loved classical music. That was always my first love. And I was always so amazed by the great classical composers, especially the guys, the 20th century guys. You know, like Stravinsky, and Ravel and Debussy
Of course.
and Poulenc and Prokofiev and Bartok, all these guys who brought the music to, I think, the highest. So I pursued that in Berkeley and later.
So you are a fantastic musician and composer, and I'm really interested in, and you and I have had many conversations in the past to talk about faith and to talk about God and Jesus working in our lives. And I'm, in my mind, kind of where this conversation is leaning is what, for you, what is the intersection of faith and music? How does music, playing the piano, composition, transcribing, hearing a beautiful piece, animate your faith? Or how does that help you to express your faith?
So it's like when you play music, I don't know if you have.
At one point, I took like 5 years of piano lessons, but it's all gone now.
It takes you to a place that you can't explain, and it's just wonderful. Okay, and it's like almost for a little bit, like I could have a bad day, and all I have to do, like I was when you came in today, I was playing Chopin piece, right?
That's how I found the apartment, as I listened for the piano.
To a different place, okay, that you can't explain. Okay, and sometimes I think that place is like the closest I can get in this life to the kingdom. You know, it's like almost this place of complete peace. You know, it's like it's almost inexplicable what you feel. You know, and same thing when you write music. You know, you write and you get this inspiration, and you work on it, and then you play it. It's just the most amazing feeling ever. You know, and it puts you in a place that you can do otherwise. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm gonna ask you more about it because does this happen every time you play music? Is in that you start to tickle
most of the time, and of course there are times that days that you are like absolutely in that place, and other days it's less, you know. But I would say it happens most of the time. Yeah.
And you explained it as like, I guess one of the early terms that you brought to it was a place of like peace. I'm imagining you're from this seaside town. I'm imagining this very calm feeling, looking at the sea, for example. Like that's how I'm trying to relate. Is it kind of like that, where everything that's going on in your life, everything that you might be worried about, is kind of
Gone.
Disappears.
It's like, yeah, life struggles, worries, uncertainties, all is gone. It's just a place of peace, absolute peace, you know, for a limited time, you know, but it puts you complete ease, you know.
I'm trying to figure out like God's relationship in all of this. Is it like a way of like communion or like communing, or do you like think about God when you play?
I just feel it, you know. I know there's so much. How can I explain this?
I just wrote down it was like communion with the divine, because I think for Jose, he was created as like a pianist, as a musician. Like he has perfect pitch. He has this innate ability. Like, he's a very quick learner. So I think for him, he was created in this, like, as a pianist, as a musician. So when he spends time at the piano, it's him being in his creative state with his creator.
How does being a musician and being able to play the piano help you express your faith?
As I said, that helps me to connect with the divine.
Yeah.
And also, I believe like faith and service are connected. So, one of the things that I like to do with music is service to change the lives of people around me. Like, you know that I'm an educator. I teach at the Lindenblad and I teach at the Morris County College. So it's one of the most satisfying parts of my life is seeing how through music I have helped improving the lives of so many people around me. Students that come to me like completely lost and they don't know what to do, and you see them changing and moving forward in their lives and being successful. You know, they go to colleges and they finish their college education and they have successful lives. Or students at the music school who you take them and they're completely raw material, they don't know what they're doing, and then you start shaping them and changing their lives, and then by the time they leave and they're like really amazing musicians. So that part of service for me is also very important, you know. We did this day at the Sierra House. Sierra House is a house that takes it's homeless people, women shelter. So we did a little service day there, and Maggie and I played a couple of songs for the kids, and it was amazing to see how, you know, that totally engaged them. And so I believe in the power of music making a difference in the lives of people around us. For me, one of the ways I express my faith by service and service through music to change the lives of other people. Then there's another aspect that I found fascinating about music. And so I am very, very impressed by the creation, by these trees around us and by the skies.
Yeah.
One of the highlights of my life, I would say, probably was the best day of my life, was when we were in Iceland. So Maggie, Jason Levi, and myself were there, and we were trying to see the Northern Lights. And the first night we were not successful, and the second night, all the magic happened. And we saw the Northern Lights, and I remember I started weeping. It was so overwhelming, so beautiful, and I remember Levi started praying, and it was incredible. So how you can somehow capture that and turn it into music, you know? And I love a real piece that probably doesn't even make justice to the glory of that moment and the beauty of that moment, but I was inspired by that, you know? And I know that many other composers in the past have done this, you know, use music to glorify the Lord. Messiaen, who is actually a guy that not many people know, he's a French composer, 20th century. He wrote a lot of weird, out there music, but he actually was inspired by birds, which I also take very seriously, divine creatures, you know. I observe a lot of birds, and I think I point to you all the time when I hear the bird songs. And he was inspired by birds as divine creatures, and he transcribed their and wrote music inspired by them. So it's nature capturing that divine and being inspired by that to write music. You know, it's. So those two things I find, like service and capturing the divine.
So two things. One is I never heard that explanation of the Northern Light Suites up until this moment, and so that adds another layer to it. But I've heard your Northern Light Suites performed by you, and also a recording that's on my iTunes that I listen to a lot. And I knew that they were tied to the Northern Lights because they're called the Northern Lights Suites. But there's one particular movement that is deeply moving to me and brings meaning to certain emotions that I have that have previously not had language. And so it's kind of like this song has brought language to some very profound experiences in my life, which has definitely like rippled out into my faith. So I'm starting to see all this overlap in music and how it's a service and how it shapes people's lives and people's faith, and how it is this kind of moment in time capsule of creation in a very profound moment that you had standing. So that's really interesting. But the other piece I was thinking about the Sierra House and how that as being the wonderful service that they do there, and the kind of lives that people are walking into the Sierra House with, lives that might have lots of uncertainty or lots of hurt or chaos, and how earlier you were describing peace, and I'm just imagining in my head, I'm thinking about, I wasn't there when you were playing, but I was thinking about the kind of peace, that moment of peace that you could grant these kids, which I think is really spectacular.
It was actually a pretty simple piece, but it's how that little thing, even though it's like really not much, has such a changing effect, in kids, and I was telling Maggie, because like everybody else, I complain about my struggles, and how great reminder, seeing something like the Sierra House, which is literally 15 minutes away from where we live, and we live in a beautiful area of New Jersey, and so it's kind of like a reminder of how privileged and lucky we are, and people 15 minutes away going through so much uncertainty, as you said, And
I was going to ask you, kind of mirroring from that little scene with the Sierra House, has there been a time in your life when things were either dark or uncertain or unknown or filled with hurt, that music and playing the piano brought a sense of peace? Yeah.
A few years ago, I went through a very difficult personal time, and the way of coping with pain and was through the music. I also was very lucky to meet Maggie. It was like a gift from God. And I remember in that time, going to the music school was my happiest moment of the day, like opening the door and Maggie will be there, and sorry.
That's great. It's all connected.
I'm a little sentimental right now. And it will be the best moment of my whole day. And then she brought me to church and changed everything.
You've had this profound ability as a musician, and so maybe what has it been like to kind of bring that gift that you have into a community?
Well, it's probably the best that I can share with the community, and I'm glad that I can do that. One of my favorite moments is when I get the chance to play at schoolies, and sometimes I take it out there,
Can you describe the piano at schoolies?
Well, the piano at schoolies is actually much better than what most people think, I don't think hear a lot of people, that piano is, I think it's a great piano, it just needs a little help, It has beautiful, huge sound, and it's beautiful when we have a beautiful exhortation, and I get the chance to play, and I get the chance to take it out there, like, meaning I stretch a little bit. And I remember one of the most beautiful compliments I got once was, that was like, for a moment, it was like being in the kingdom, for a little bit, and it feels like that, it was a little moment at the end. I remember it was at the end of I felt like I was, sometimes, I feel like I get this thing from God, it comes to me, and I can play back,
Talk more about that. What you just.
It's very
described.
difficult
Yeah, I know.
to talk about that, but
Yeah.
I don't know. You get into this moment that something magical happens and it almost isolates you from everything else, and you feel something coming from above and gets to your body like this, and it goes, and you play it, and it's just magic because it seems that the time stops. Everything stops, you know, and you're just there, and beautiful because you feel like you're almost giving this love to all the people around you, you know. It's complicated to explain. I hope it makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's such a beautiful thread because at the beginning of our conversation, you were talking about how music and playing the piano was this, like this doorway into peace, and like the kingdom was now. And how beautiful is it that you can bring people there with what Chris's compliment was to you, that, you know, I was there, right? And you probably never told her prior to that playing the piano makes you feel like, brings you this sense of peace, and this, it sounds very grounding, but to be able to bring people into that space and create those thin spaces where we can touch and eclipse something divine, that is
Yeah, that's
wonderful.
It is really wonderful. It was probably one of the greatest compliments I can get, because it doesn't have necessarily to be like this fancy piece. No, it was nothing like that. It was actually pretty simple, but it was divine.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to sound like created this thing. No, it was came to me.
Well, yeah, that's just it. Is you? I mean, you're a person of exceptional talent, but you're talking about yourself, at least at times, as like this vehicle, like that's how I'm understanding it. Is that
it's a vehicle.
You kind of like show up. You like show up to the keys. You show up to the instrument, and sometimes God speaks.
Yeah, it's a service too.
Yeah.
You're serving.
Yeah. What does your faith look like outside of music? Or is it only housed, is it only within music? That faith for you is real and comes alive? Or does faith have other aspects of your life where it's powerful or real?
I find a lot of moments when I see the love, in so many ways, when people love other people, when people are kind to other people, when people serve other people, when you run the New York Marathon and see this communion between all these people of different cultures, races, and all together, and it's so moving, Or simple things like that of kindness, when somebody holds the door for you and how you doing? Thank you. For me, it's especially service, as I said before.
Have you ever been able to capture that, what you just described in the last 20 seconds, the love that you see between people and how that really kindles a sense of faith? Have you been able to capture that in music, just like you captured that moment in Iceland underneath the Northern Lights in music?
You mean a specific piece?
Or, does that, sometimes, yeah.
Or other people's music. So, yeah. Yeah, like
No, it's enthusiastic.
when you play, for instance, that piece that I was playing when you came in, Chopin Scherzo number 2. Scherzo is an Italian word, means scherzando, which means playing, which is fast, Okay, but it sounds like a kind of like funny, but there's so much depth in that piece. Okay, so you ask me if there's love in that piece. There's so much compassion in that piece. Okay, compassion. There's love in that piece. There's suffering. People could argue with me like, how do you know that? Well, I just feel it. I know that that's in the music. You hear the suffering in the music. You hear the compassion, you hear the love, you hear the struggle, you hear the relief, all those things together.
I really want to just like open my eyes and see what you see in that peaceful place when you play. Like I don't think I have a place like that or an outlet to get there. And it's something I think maybe a lot of people want in their life, is to be able to arrive at a place of like peace and everything is okay right now and my cares are dissolved and this kind of kingdom place. So for those of us who don't play the piano, how might you further describe that place, or how might we get there knowing that I will never play the piano?
That's a tough question. Through praying, you can get there. You can get there by contemplating beautiful nature that we have around us. By contemplate, I always talk about let's contemplate the light.
I was just about to say, let me tell you a story about Jose when he said, let's go contemplate the lights.
Contemplate the light.
Yeah.
And a beautiful autumn light around 5. Okay?
5 o'clock is the time.
5, it will get there. It will get to you. Contemplate the light. Look at the light through the beautiful autumn leaves, you know? Look at the beautiful leaves on the floor in the autumn. Look at the beautiful Mediterranean. Look at the transparent, crystalline waters of the Mediterranean in the winter. Contemplate the beauty of a Roman sunset in the middle of December. Read some poetry. Read some Pablo Neruda. Or some Federico Garcia Lorca. And it can get you there, you know? In many ways, I think.
Oh, it's so...
But and praying, you know? Praying is very powerful.
Oh my gosh.
So, I'm just going to interject for a second.
Sure.
Do it.
I think something that's very special about playing piano, whether you're playing a piece that's written by someone else, or if you're Jose and you're composing a piece, what you are expressing is not yourself. So the piano, the expression is of something that's written or something that's given to you. And I think that's when we are most like our kingdom selves, is when we're not being ourselves, when we're actually being Jesus, or we're trying to express the fruit of the Spirit. So I think that is probably why Jose can feel like he's communing with the divine in those moments, because he's physically at the piano, but the thing that's being expressed, the sound, the music, is really not about him at all, but he is just a vessel for it. So I think that's a lot about it, because if you think about like, how can I get to this place, like it's still just about you. It's not really about the place.
And like there's like the word humility kind of came to mind, and that almost to fully receive what's already around you, or to find yourself standing in a very kingdom like space, is a level of acceptance and a level of letting things be where they are. And I mean, you're an extraordinarily humble guy, so like, that's how but it's so interesting that when you described how if you take away the piano, how do you find the sense of peace, the sense of standing with or in the presence of the divine? You listed off so many sources of inspiration. Like that word kind of popped when you were talking, that inspiration is a part of this. And I think inspiration is a part of, thinking about the suite that you wrote for Maggie, or the suite that you wrote for the Northern Lights, like that process of capturing creation, or capturing that moment of wow. Yeah, there's I think inspiration is kind of the woven in there somewhere. I can't quite figure out where, but
yeah, inspiration is very important. part of the process. And I'm glad that, as you said, it's not about me or you or Matt, or it's about the divine, all of us, the communion. That's very important, you know. Like, if I can be seen as a medium of getting that and giving it to people, I'll definitely be very, very happy, you know, that I can improve the lives of other people.
Like, if people hear you and see God, like, that's...
I'll be super happy.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's interesting that you say that, because like you were talking about Jose's piano playing, but really, like, that's what the goal is with everything that you do in your life, is that they might experience something that you're doing and see God working.
And this is, like, I heard a lot of artists that talk about this, you know, they're giving this, like, we're talking about phenomenal artists. Like, there's a trumpet player, he's a legendary Cuban trumpet player, he's in his 70s, and he talks about this, you know, this gift that was given to him by God, and how he has used his talent wisely to improve and to change the life of people and to see the divine, you know, make people's lives better, you know. And I think if you get close to that stage, and I mean, it's amazing to see what you can do and how people respond to you, and it makes you really the happiest man on earth, because it gives you so much purpose in you know, it's just amazing, you know. It gives you so much peace too, you know, like, man, I did the right thing, I'm doing something to make this world a better place, you know. And to make, I remember one of the things that when I was first going to church and I was doing a reading with Maggie in a park in Montclair, she told me, you know, like, this is what it's all about, you know. It's about making our lives and the lives around people, the people around us, more like the kingdom, you know. That was, I think, very powerful, and we see the actual change, you know, and it's such a joyful experience.
If you could describe your faith now in a short phrase or a metaphor or an image, how would you describe?
Hope. The hope for a beautiful place to come soon.
My last question is, will you play something for us?
Oh, sure, yeah. So this piece is called Melancholy, and is by a great French composer named Francis Poulenc.
Thank you again to Matt and Jose for that interview, and I wanted to ask again that if you identified with this and want to help, to please get in touch with us. Go to www.wcfoundation.org/music-network and fill out the contact form. Thank you again for listening, and may God bless you.